the more you know about the previous 65, that'll help you with the 66th. So the Bible's, it's about a lot about trees. And so one of Nick Land's favorite things that the CCRU, his academic collective, that they ended up coming through, they say it was a channeling, or it came to them when they were staying at Aleister Crowley's house in England in 1998. They came up with something called the numogram. And people listening to this won't be able to see it, but I want you to hold that up.
All right.
That is his system. That is, if you're familiar with the Kabbalah tree of life, are you familiar with that, the symbol of that?
No.
I probably should have printed that out too.
I wore a red rubber band from a newspaper on my wrist for most of my life, given to me by my father, just because he worked at a newspaper. And I've been accused many times of being in the Kabbalah. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm an Episcopalian to restate.
Sure.
I don't know shit about Kabbalah. So no, I don't know what the Kabbalah tree of life is.
You didn't strike me as a Kabbalah. So long story short, the numogram is, Nick Land, he was on this podcast about a month ago. I think it's Mikey Downs has this podcast where he finally explained it a little bit. He doesn't show how he uses it specifically, but it's a system of divination that he uses it every 5 minutes to be in contact with the outside, with what he calls the lemurs, which again comes from William Burroughs, which comes from theosophy. And Burroughs has said it's fundamental.
And the lemurs are demons.
Yes, he'll use demons and lemurs. The word lemurs originally goes back to Roman times. It meant spirit. So these are the spirits that he hears whispering in his ear, not unlike Crowley's holy guardian angel, which Crowley said would help him dictate books. He said it was a whisper he'd hear in the back of his head after he'd made contact with it. For what it's worth, if people want to look up some of the entities Crowley said he was in touch with, one of them, Lamb, in 1917 or so, looks pretty similar to what would later be called a gray alien. It's yes.
Just to kind of summarize what I think you're saying, from a Christian context, the Holy Spirit is not the only spirit out there that can invade people and determine their actions and attitudes.
No. I mean, as this guy Mikey Downs points out, the relationship of demons to angels is not unlike that of a werewolf to a human. It's something that was something else and is now taken on kind of a deformed presence entity. So long story short, the Kabbalah tree of life, and this is a reference you're understandably not going to get, Tucker, because it's Nintendo 64. The numogram is essentially the Majora's Mask to the regular Kabbalah tree of life's Ocarina of Time. It is the dark, shadowy, upside down, much more heavily satanic version of it. It actually comes from Kenneth Grant, the guy we've been talking about. He wrote a book, Night Side of Eden, I think in 1977. And it was about how while using the Kabbalah tree of life, there were these hidden subterranean darker paths. That there were these more, he would say through the tunnels of Set, who, kind of not unrelated to Satan, that he would use to be in contact with stuff. So long story short, with the numogram and the way Land uses it, what's important here from just a weirdness perspective, you've got, a way to contact heaven, but more importantly, a way to contact hell. And you've got, the 8th gate and the 9th gate. The 9th gate, not quite related, but not unrelated to the Roman Polanski, Johnny Depp movie, The 9th Gate, where Depp's character comes in contact with hell. So what they believe is they are literally contacting hell in some cases for divination purposes.
To see the future.
Or just to see anything, just for insight. And that brings us back.
For knowledge.
And he even has a point about the number 666, where a lot of these numbers, he calls it theosophical math. You have triangle numbers, which is, if you stack these things like they're a triangle, like the triangle number of 9 is 45. That's why it's 45 there. There are only so many triangle numbers. One of them is 666, and that is the triangle number of 36, which is an important part of the numogram. So when Land realized this, he was like, of course it's 666. So what I'm getting at, you are getting involved in heavily, wildly Luciferian stuff. And Land, on this podcast, he says, well, what about people who say you're communicating with Satan, which Land will also talk about being in communication with Satan. He'll say Christians who say that, he goes, I am not unsympathetic towards that. He goes, they're more right than most because I am in contact with something from the outside. He goes, and,
I just can't overstate how disqualifying I find that. I feel sorry for anyone who plays around with that stuff.
Tucker's out of the interview. He's like, okay.
No, but I'm just saying, anyone who says, I really getting a lot of inspiration from a guy who's controlled by Satan. I'm going to leave it to God to decide, what happens to that person. But that person has disqualified himself.
Totally.
In my